I was a streamer famous for doing random, unhinged stuff online. And now the richest woman in Bayford wanted me to seduce her son. Make my son fall for you, I'll give you 10 properties, houses, apartments, condos. For a second, even I thought, okay, this is insane. Mary and Jensen looked at me like I was her last hope. Please, I'm out of options. Ever since he was little, I kept pretty girls around him. When he got older, I introduced him to every type of girl possible. But he's 30 now and has never dated anyone. Then she lowered her voice. I think something's wrong with him. Like those billionaire guys in drama. Shorts. Maybe he only likes weird girls from the bad side of town. I just stared at her. Wow. Appreciate that. Did I just meet a crazy person? I was about to say no when she shoved 10 property deeds and a photo across the table. Go seduce my son if you pull it off. The 10 properties are yours. I looked at the deeds and the photo and instantly decided to help this desperate but incredible mother forget something being wrong with him. Even if he liked men, I'd still make him fall for me. Thanks to Mary and pulling strings. Behind the scenes, I became the personal assistant to Jace. Jensen, Bayford's golden boy, and the first thing he said when he saw me was, "How much did my mom pay you?" "I'll double it now. Get out." 2 months later, the job was over. But Jace stood there with red eyes, crying. How could you use me and throw me away? I don't care, you're taking responsibility for this. How much did my mom pay you? "I'll double it now. Get out." I barely stepped into Jace's office before he threw that at me. Wow, we spun straight into nightmare mode. No wonder he was the hardest guy in Bayford to crack. The second I thought about those 10 properties, my motivation came roaring back. Didn't matter how impossible he was for 10 properties. I'd crawl through hell smiling. I pressed my lips together. You already know your mom paid me to be here. So why waste money offering double? Ace looked a little surprised by how direct I was, and finally glanced up from behind his desk. That look practically screamed, all right. Let's see your game. I didn't care. I dropped onto the couch like I owned the place. How about we help each other out? You pretend to be a little interested in
Me?
I get paid and leave, and you get your mom off your back forever. His brows pulled together. Judging by his face, he was 2 seconds away from throwing me out again. So I cut him off. First, relax. I'm professional. I'm not crossing any lines. I shrugged. I'm here for the money, not for men. Jace nearly choked on my answer. After a long silence, he let out a cold laugh. Fine, do whatever you want. But remember what you said. Cross a line once and you're gone.
Wow.
Rich boys really did come with attitude. Problems. Got it? I stood then corrected myself. Sorry, Mr. Jensen. I'll go learn the assistant stuff now. He didn't answer, just flicked his hand at me impatiently. Yeah, this guy's going to be a pain. Still, whatever, he already agreed to play along one way or another. I was getting those properties. As I walked out of the office, I touched my face and remembered what Mary and said. Maybe he liked girls who were a little weird. A little messed up, fine. I could do weird. We were talking about 10 properties here. Pride wasn't worth that much for real estate. My dignity could die peacefully. The secretary outside stood the second. She saw me. Miss Shea, thank you for your effort. I'll walk you out. Huh. I blinked at her. Why would I leave? I work here now.
Oh.
She froze for half a second before fixing her expression.
Sorry.
I'm Mr. Jensen's executive secretary. Lisa, I'll show you around and walk you through your duties. Lisa paused before adding, As Mr. Jensen's private assistant, you'll handle his day-to-day needs during work hours. He's very particular about details. He hates being interrupted, and he especially hates unnecessary social interaction. Unnecessary social interaction. I caught that part instantly. Lisa just gave me a knowing look. The previous assistants were all fired. Because of that?
Oh,
I nodded and flashed her an okay sign. At 3 o'clock that afternoon, I had to accompany Jace to a community library donation event. My first chance by the time our car pulled up to the community center. The place was already packed. Second Jace stepped out, people swarmed. Him. Mr. Jensen, thank you so much for supporting our community. Mr. Jensen, over here. Can we take a picture? Mr. Jensen, I'm a creator online. Can I get a quick comment? I felt Jay stiffen beside me instantly. Wait, Bayford's golden boy. The guy running Jensen Corpse Bayford. Branch was bad with people? Jackpot. I immediately stepped in front of him. Everyone, Mr. Jensen's on a tight schedule. Let's get through the donation ceremony. First, okay? Photos and interviews can wait until afterward if he has time. While talking, I shot Mr. Libert from the community board a quick look. He caught on immediately and started leading the way. I slipped to Jace's side, one arm around his waist, while using the other to block the crowd. As I guided him forward, boss, walk faster. Let's get this over with. My excuse sounded reasonable enough. So Jace only stiffened for a second before letting it go. The ceremony itself was short. Jace barely talked the entire time. He mostly just stood there for pictures. Afterward, Mr. Liebert still tried to walk him through library. Jace said nothing. He just glanced at me casually. I got the message immediately and hooked myself around his arm. Mr. Liebert, Mr. Jensen still has meetings after this, but we really appreciate it. Maybe next time then. I leaned close to Jace's ear and whispered, Boss, the car is waiting outside. Made sure my breath brushed lightly against his ear, just like before. I kept an arm around his waist while guiding him toward the exit, and I could feel how stiff he was the whole time. At one point, he got so flustered he almost forgot how his legs worked. Wow, this guy was ridiculously innocent. Messing with him was actually kind of fun. I escorted Jace all the way into the car before finally relaxing once the door shut. Damn, that tiny event was more tiring than a full-on live stream battle. I barely settled into my seat when Jace let out a cold laugh. You did that on purpose. I turned and caught the faint red on his ears. Playing dumb, I blinked at him. Boss, what exactly did I do you? Jace glared at me, practically grinding his teeth together. He looked completely flustered. Did you just blow on my ear?
no.
I lifted my hands innocently. I'm a human being. Humans brata. Jace instantly went silent. The tips of his ears turned even redder. Embarrassment melting straight into irritation. The second we get back, we're signing a contract. Ground rules shot me a warning look. Cross the line again. And you're fired on the spot and forget about getting paid. After that, Jace made a contract that was ridiculously long. No physical contact without permission. No standing too close without permission. Any contact during emergencies. Had to stay reasonable, honestly. It was hilarious. Did he seriously think a contract could stop me? Unfortunately, yes. Totally could. The guy clearly had no idea how shameless I could get. I had to find other ways to stay in his face. I pulled every trick I could think of and practically worked myself to death for half a month before finally feeling like we'd gotten a little closer. Then right when I started getting comfortable, Jace worked himself sick. 10 minutes into an international video meeting, I realized something was off. His reactions were slower than usual. His voice sounded rough, and there was sweat on his forehead. Boss, are you? I'm fine. He cut me off, grabbed his coffee, took a long drink, then rubbed his temples. Mr. Jensen, someone on the screen asked uncertainly. He swayed a little and had to grab the desk to steady himself. 10-minute break, I said into the mic, before cutting the video feed. Boss, you have a fever. Let me check. I reached for his forehead, but he stopped me immediately. No touching me without permission. His voice was weak, but he still sounded stubborn. Continue the meeting, okay? Okay, I won't touch you. I lifted my hands, but you can barely. Sit up, lights. Right now, let me take you to the hospital.
No.
He dropped back into his chair and shut his eyes. I stared at him while those 10 properties flashed through my head. Whatever, taking care of a sick boss definitely counted as reasonable. Fine, no hospital. I gave and then at least go lie down in the lounge. I'll get you something for the fever. He opened his eyes and looked at me, his gaze a little unfocused. He was probably burning up badly enough that he didn't bother arguing this time. After getting him onto the bed in the lounge, I searched through the medicine cabinet. Luckily, there was a thermometer and fever medicine inside. Open your mouth. I slipped the thermometer under his tongue. He frowned, but still kept it there. Obediently. 5 minutes later, I checked the thermometer. 102.5. Take these. I handed him the fever medicine and some water. Swallowed everything without complaining. I pressed a cold towel against his forehead. He stiffened a little but didn't pull away there. Go to sleep. Don't even think about. He started weakly. I cut him off immediately. Relax. I'm not going to take advantage of you while you're passed out. He choked on my words, let out a cold huff, then passed out anyway. I sat on the small couch nearby to keep an eye on him. After God knows how long, he suddenly shifted and grabbed my hand. By the bed. Don't go, he mumbled weakly. Brows pulled tight together. His damp hair made him look weirdly vulnerable. Oh my God. How was anyone supposed to deal with this? This was the same man who could crash an entire boardroom without blinking, and now he was lying here, burning up with a fever, holding my hand and asking me not to leave. Any girl would fold seeing this. I pressed a hand to my chest and forced myself to calm down. 10 properties, 10 properties. 10 properties if I screw this up by crossing a line. I'm dead after a while. He finally calmed down and his grip loosened a little. I carefully slipped my hand free and changed the towel on his forehead. When I opened my eyes again, it was already dark outside. I'd somehow fallen asleep on the couch. I stood up and noticed Jay starting to wake. So I leaned over to tuck the blanket around him tighter and casually touched his face. While I was at it, my hands were cold, and the second they brushed his forehead, his eyes flew open. What are you doing? He jerked away from my hand, his voice still rough from the fever. Tucking you in, checking if your fever went down too. I looked at him with the most innocent expression I could fake. He stared at me for a second before quietly saying, thanks. I grinned and made sure to emphasize, you're welcome, boss. Your health is directly connected to my 10 properties. Remember, he looked like he wanted to say something else. In the end, he just let out another annoyed huff. You hungry? I ordered soup. It should be here soon. I pointed at my phone. He looked at me again, and wow, that look seriously did something to me. Second later, he looked away and muttered, don't stay here taking care of me. Next time, that's not happening. I sounded completely reasonable. What if your fever gets worse and you roll off the bed or something? There go my 10 properties, you. He got choked up again, his ears turning. Red all over. All you care about are those 10 properties. What else would I care about? Watching him get flustered was seriously addicting. Suddenly, I wanted to push him a little
More.
I leaned closer, looked straight into his eyes, and smiled. Don't tell me you want me to care about.
You.
Instead, the second I saw Jace's breathing catch and panic flash across his face, I felt completely satisfied and leaned back right away. That wouldn't be good, though. I smiled innocently. I'm very professional. But before I could pull out of his space completely, he suddenly grabbed my wrist. Surely, what exactly does professional mean to you? He looked straight into my eyes. Does it mean flirting with me and then running away every time? Now it was my turn to panic, boss. I tried to pull my hand back. You're crossing a line here. To my surprise, he pulled me even closer. Instead, and what if I am? He shot back. I made the rules. I decide what counts. Okay. The fever seriously got to his brain. What is he doing right now? Fine, if you wanted to play, I could play better. I gritted my teeth. Shut my eyes for half a second. Then let him pull me closer. I gritted my teeth. Shut my eyes for half a second. Then let him pull me closer. If you wanted to play a game of chicken while running a 102 degrees fever, fine. I was a streamer. My entire career was built on doubling down when things got awkward. My hands flattened against his chest. I could feel his heartbeat, erratic and heavy, thumping right. His face was inches from mine. His breathing was shallow, his dark eyes slightly glassy, but entirely focused on my mouth. I'm waiting, boss, I whispered, keeping my voice steady even though my own heart was starting to betray me. You make the rules. What counts? For a second, I honestly thought he was going to kiss me. His gaze dropped to my lips. His grip on my wrist tightened, and he leaned in just a fraction of an inch more. Then his eyes fluttered. The adrenaline of trying to intimidate me completely burned out the last of his energy. Reserves, his grip went slack, and his head dropped forward, landing heavily, right in the crook of my neck. He was out cold. I sat there, frozen, supporting the weight of Bayford's most terrifying billionaire CEO as he drooled slightly onto my collarbone. 10 properties, I muttered to the empty room, staring at the ceiling. 10 luxury properties with ocean views and high-end security systems. That's the only reason I'm not throwing you on the floor right now. Carefully, I untangled myself, laid him back down, and pulled the blanket up to his chin. The super, I have 10 minutes. Later, I didn't wake him up for it. Instead, I ate it myself on the little couch, watching his chest rise and fall. He looked entirely too normal when he was asleep, not like a corporate shark, and definitely not like the impossible puzzle his mother made him out to be. Just a guy who worked himself into the ground because he didn't know how else to exist. The shift. The next morning, the dynamic in the office was weird. Jace was back at his desk by 8 a.m., looking slightly pale, but otherwise fully operational when I walked in. Carrying his black coffee, he didn't look up from his tablet. Morning, boss, I said, setting the cup down exactly 2 in from his right hand. Praise ridiculous unspoken rules. Morning, he said flatly. I waited for him to mention the night before, the hand-holding, the near kiss, the fact that he passed out on my shoulder. Nothing. He just kept scrolling through his emails. Fever completely gone? I asked, leaning slightly over his desk. I'm fiending. Send Lisa in. I need the Q3. Projections, he replied, his voice back to his usual icy tenor.
Wow, okay.
So we were going with the pretend it never happened route. I could respect that. It made my job easier. But as I turned to walk away, I noticed something. The tips of his ears were bright, burning red. I paused at the door, glancing back over my shoulder. He was still staring at the tablet, but he hadn't scrolled in 30 seconds. His jaw was clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. Oh, he remembers. A slow, wicked smile spread across my face. I walked out and closed the door. This was going to be entirely too much fun. Over the next few weeks, the infamous contract became practically useless, not because I was breaking the rules, but because Jace kept finding excuses to rewrite them. First, it was the proximity rule. I was supposed to stay 3 feet away at all times, unless handing him documents. But suddenly, he needed me to point out specific lines on his laptop screen during meetings which required me leaning over his shoulder. Then he decided my desk in the outer office was inefficient for communication, so he had maintenance move a smaller desk directly into his private office, facing his. This is purely for logistical purposes, he told me without making eye contact the day the desk arrived. Obviously, I replied, kicking my feet up onto my new desk. Communication is key. Speaking of, you missed a spot. Shaving right under your jawline. His hand flew to his neck instantly. He glared at me. Shut up and sort the mail, Shay. It wasn't just his physical boundaries that were crumbling, it was his digital ones too. As a streamer, I still had a contract to fulfill for my platform. I couldn't abandon my channel completely, so I started doing late night streams from my apartment after work, mostly just chatting, playing horror games, and doing the unhinged commentary my audience loved. One night, I was midstream, aggressively screaming at a pixelated ghost when a donation notification popped up on the screen. User J_money_bags donated $1,000. Message, go to sleep. You have an early meeting tomorrow. I blinked at the screen, my character instantly dying to the ghost. The chat went completely insane. Asterisk, who was that? Asterisk, $8,000 just to tell her to sleep. Asterisk, sugar daddy alert. I stared at the camera, a suspicious feeling creeping up my spine. Thanks for the grand J_money_bags. But I'm an adult. I sleep when I want. 2 seconds later, user J_money_bags donated $2,000. Message, you literally yawned 3 times in the last 5 minutes. Turn it off. I grabbed my phone and texted Jace. Me, asterisk, are you watching my stream? Right now? Jace, asterisk, I have better things to do than watch you scream at a computer monitor. Me, asterisk, then who is J_money_bags? Jace, asterisk, sounds like a very reasonable viewer who cares about your productivity. I burst out laughing right there on the stream. My viewers were wildly confused, but I didn't care. I typed back, if you want me to sleep so badly, pay me my real estate. He didn't reply, but a minute later, a final donation came through. User J_money_bags donated $5,000. Message, good night, Shay. I ended the stream. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my heart doing that stupid, erratic thumping thing again. Stop it, I told myself. You're here for Marianne's properties. He's just a Mark, a really awkward, overly generous, secretly sweet Mark. Hashtag the gala. The real turning point happened exactly 6 weeks into the job. Bayford's annual charity gala was the most pretentious event of the year.
Jace!
Hated it. I knew he hated it because he sighed loudly every time I added a fitting for his tuxedo to the calendar. You're my +1, he announced 3 days before the event. I looked up from my laptop. I don't have a dress for a black tie gala unless you want me to show up in my eat trash. Hail Satan oversized hoodie. Jace stared at me for a long moment. Lisa will bring you 3 options this afternoon. Pick one and please, for the love of God, do not wear the hoodie. When the night of the gala arrived, I had to admit Lisa had good taste. The dress was a deep emerald green silk that hugged every curve and dipped low in the back. When I stepped out of the dressing room at the office, Jace was waiting by
The door.
He looked up, and for the first time since I met him, he was completely, utterly speechless. His eyes tracked from my heels up the slit of the dress all the way to my hair, which I had actually bothered to pin up. He swallowed hard. Is this crossing a line, boss? I teased, doing a slow spin. He cleared his throat aggressively, fixing his perfectly fine cufflinks. It's acceptable. Let's go. We're going to be late. The gala was exactly what I expected.
Hey!
Room full of rich people drinking expensive champagne and trying to figure out who had the most money. Jace was a prime target the moment we walked in. Women in diamond necklaces and men in custom suits swarmed him. But this time, Jace didn't let me step in front of him to block the crowd. Instead, he placed a firm hand on the small of my back, his bare skin brushing against the exposed silk, and kept me flush against his side. Every time someone tried to monopolize his time, he would smoothly pivot, keeping me in the conversation. This is my assistant, Shay. He introduced me to a group of older investors. One of them, a woman dripping in pearls, who looked like she judged people for a living, eyed me up and down. Shay, what a unique name. Who are your people? Dear, I don't believe I know the Shays of Bayford. Oh, I'm not from Bayford, I said cheerfully. I grew up on the south side. My parents ran a laundromat. The woman's smile froze as she looked at Jace as if he had just brought a stray dog to a Michelin star restaurant. I see. How quaint, Jace. Darling, surely you could find someone with a more appropriate pedigree for your executive team. I opened my mouth to fire back. A sarcastic remark, probably something that would get me fired, but Jace beat me to it. His hand tightened on my waist. The temperature in his eyes dropped to absolute 0. Shay is the most capable person in my company, Jace said, his voice terrifyingly calm. She is intelligent, resourceful, and entirely invaluable to me. Frankly, Eleanor, her pedigree is none of your business. If you ever speak to her with that tone again, Jensen Corp will be pulling its funding from your husband's offshore ventures by tomorrow morning. The circle of investors went dead. Silent. Eleanor turned a mottled shade of red, stammered an apology, and practically sprinted away. I looked up at Jace, genuinely shocked. He didn't look at me. He just grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing waiter and downed half of it. I hate these people, he muttered. You didn't have to do that, I said softly. I'm used to it. He finally looked down at me, and the intensity in his eyes made my breath hitch. You shouldn't have to be not when you're with me. We left the gala an hour early. The car ride back to my apartment was thick with the tension so heavy you could cut it with a knife. Neither of us spoke. When the town car pulled up to my building, I grabbed my clutch. Thanks for the dress, boss. See you Monday. I went to open the door, but his hand shot out, catching my wrist just like he had when he was sick. But this time his grip was firm, intentional, and he was completely lucid. Shay, he said. I turned back to him. Yeah. He stared at me. The streetlights casting shadows across the sharp angles of his face. He looked like he was fighting a war inside his own head. The contract, he said quietly. What about it? Section 4, paragraph 2. I frowned, trying to remember the ridiculous document he forced me to sign. 2 months ago, no physical contact. Outside of absolute professional necessity. Yeah, Jace murmured. He leaned in, his gaze dropping to my lips. I'm voidin. It. Before I could even process what that meant, his hand slid from my wrist to the back of my neck, his fingers tangled in the loose strands of my hair, pulling me across the leather seat. He kissed me. It wasn't hesitant. It wasn't polite. It was a desperate, hungry collision that completely short-circuited my brain. All my grand plans, all my snarky comebacks, all my thoughts about Mary Ensreal. Estate empire evaporated the second his mouth pressed against mine. I kissed him back. I threw my arms around his neck, pulling him closer, letting him ruin my carefully applied lipstick. He groaned a low, rough sound that vibrated against my chest and pulled me practically into his lap. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing heavily. His forehead rested against mine. Don't go upstairs, he whispered. Cool me. Home with me. My heart screamed, yes. But my brain threw a massive bucket of ice water over my head. I am being paid by his mother to do this. The realization made me feel physically sick. If I went home with him now, if I actually let this become real, I was building it on a foundation of pure manipulation. Jace hated lies. He hated people using him for his status. If he found out I was basically a hired honey trap, it would destroy him. I pulled back. The sudden loss of his warmth made me shiver. Jace, I swallowed hard. I can't. He blinked, confusion pooling in his eyes. Shay, did I misread this? No, I lied smoothly. The streamer persona slipping back on like armor.
No.
You didn't misread anything, but I'm your assistant. We work together, and honestly, I just got out of a really messy situation. I'm not ready for anything real right now. It was a garbage excuse, but it was all I had. Jace stared at me, the vulnerability in his face hardened, snapping back into the cold, untouchable CEO mask he wore. When I first met him, right, he said, his voice flat. He let go of me completely. Professionalism, my mistake. Jace, it's not. Have a good weekend, Miss Shay. He cut me off, turning his head to look out the window. I got out of the car. I watched the tail lights fade down the street, feeling like I had just made the biggest mistake of my life. The breaking point. The final 2 weeks of the 2-month deadline were absolute torture. Jace retreated so far behind his walls that I couldn't even see the guy who had fallen asleep holding my hand. He communicated with me strictly through Lisa or via email. The desk he had moved into his office was pushed back into the corner. He didn't look at me during meetings. The job was almost over in 3 days. My contract expired. On Wednesday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Marian Jensen, meet me at the Bluebird Cafe in 20 minutes. Bring the contract. I felt a pit form in my stomach. It was time to collect. I grabbed my bag, told Lisa I was taking an early lunch, and walked the 3 blocks to the cafe. Marianne was sitting in a private booth in the back, wearing designer sunglasses indoors and sipping a matcha latte. When I slid into the booth, she smiled radiantly. Shay, darling, you are a miracle worker, she beamed, sliding a thick manila envelope across the table. I've been getting reports from the board. He defended you at the gala. He moved your desk into his office. I haven't seen my son this distracted by a woman in his entire life. I stared at the envelope. I knew what was inside. The deeds, the keys, the financial independence I had joked about for weeks. He's not distracted, I said quietly. He's a good guy, Mary, and he's loyal. Whatever you want to call it. Worked, she said, tapping her manicured nails on the table. 10 properties just as promised, transferred to a holding company in your name. All the paperwork is right there. I just need you to sign the non-disclosure agreement stating you will never reveal our little arrangement to him. I reached out and touched the edge of the envelope. It felt heavy, too heavy. Mary and I started taking a deep breath. I don't think I can. Mom, the voice hit me like a physical blow to the back of the head. I froze slowly. Agonizingly, I turned around. Jace was standing near the entrance of the cafe, holding a tray of coffees. He must have been picking up an order for a client meeting. His eyes darted from his mother to me and finally to the thick manila envelope sitting squarely between
Us.
What are you two doing here? He asked, walking slowly toward the booth. Mary and actually looked panicked for a second before schooling her features. Jace, darling, what a coincidence. Shay and I were just having a little catch-up. Jace wasn't an idiot. He was one of the sharpest businessmen in the city. He looked at the envelope. He looked at my pale, guilt-stricken face. Before either of us could stop him, he reached over the table and snatched the envelope. Jace, don't. I stood up, reaching for it, but he stepped back. He ripped open the flap. The property deed spilled out onto the floor along with a printed copy of the NDA Mary Ann had prepared. Jace stared down at the scattered papers. Property transferred grantee.
Shay.
He read the NDA. His eyes tracked across the words, a compensation for services rendered regarding the romantic engagement and emotional manipulation of Jace Jensen. The silence in the cafe was deafening. When Jace finally looked up at me, the expression on his face broke my heart entirely. It wasn't anger. It wasn't coldness. It was pure, unadulterated devastation. Jace, I whispered, stepping toward him. Let me explain. How much? He asked, his voice cracked. It's not what you think. I mean, it is, but it changed. I asked how much, Shay. He yelled, the sound echoing through the quiet cafe. Several people turned to stare. Mary and stood up. Jace, calm down. I did this for you. You were so isolated. Shut up. He snarled at his mother before turning his red, watery eyes back to me. This was the scene, the exact moment from the intro. 2 months later, the job was over, but Jace stood there with red eyes crying. How could you use me and throw me away? He choked out, his chest heaving. I thought you were the one person who didn't want anything from me. I don't want the properties, Jace. I didn't sign it. I pleaded, tears stinging my own eyes. I don't care, he said, his voice dropping to a broken whisper. You're taking responsibility for this. How much did my mom pay you? He reached into his jacket, pulling out his checkbook. His hands were shaking so badly, he dropped his pen. I'll double it, he said, tears spilling over his lashes. I will give you whatever you want. Just tell me. The last 2 months weren't entirely fake. They weren't. I cried, grabbing his hands, stopping him from writing the check. Jace, I swear to God, they weren't. I fell for you. I fell so hard. For you. That's why I pushed you away. After the gala, I couldn't stand the guilt of how this started. He stared at my hands holding his. He looked like a man dying of thirst who had just been handed a glass of salt. Water. He wanted to believe me, but he... Get out, he whispered, pulling his hands away from mine. Jace. I said, get out, Shay. I looked at him. I looked at Mary and... who finally had the decency to look ashamed. I didn't take the envelope. I didn't take the deeds. I just turned around and walked out of the cafe, the bell above. The door chiming like a funeral toll. The grand gesture. I didn't go back to the office. I didn't log onto my stream for a week. I sat in my apartment staring at the wall, realizing that I had successfully secured the bag and then intentionally thrown it into the ocean because the billionaire attached to it turned out to be the love of my life. Life was hilarious that way. On day 8 of my self-imposed exile, my phone rang. It was Lisa. Miss Shay, she said, her voice hushed. Hey, Lisa, if this is about returning my key card, I mailed it yesterday. No, it's not that, she said, sounding frantic. It's Mr. Jensen. He's a disaster. Shay, he hasn't gone home in 4 days. He's sleeping on the couch in his office. He fired 3 VPs yesterday for minor typos. He's drinking scotch at 10 a.m. You broke him. I close my eyes. He doesn't want to see
Me.
Lisa, I'm the last person he wants. I don't care what he wants. You got it. About my job security. Lisa snapped. Fix this. Whatever you did to him, fix
It.
He has a massive shareholder address. At 2 p.m. today in the main lobby. If he goes out there looking like a depressed raccoon, the stock is going to tank. She hung up on me. I stared at my phone, a depressed raccoon. I was a streamer. I was famous for doing random unhinged stuff online. I made my living by being loud, shameless, and taking massive risks. Why was I sitting here crying when I could be doing what I do best? I shot up from the couch. I threw on my best power suit, the one I bought with my very first paycheck from Jensen Corp, and grabbed my phone. I arrived at the Jensen Corp building at 1:45 p.m. The massive glass atrium was packed with shareholders, reporters, and employees. A temporary stage had been set up near the fountain. I slipped past security using a back door I knew Lisa usually left unlocked for the catering cruise. I found the AV control board hidden behind a velvet curtain near the side of the stage.
The.
Tech guy was eating a sandwich, not paying attention. Hey, I whispered, slipping him a $100
Bill.
Take a 15-minute break. I need the mic. He looked at the money, looked at me, shrugged, and walked away. At exactly 2 p.m., Jace walked out onto the stage. Lisa wasn't kidding. He looked awful. His suit wasn't perfectly tailored. His hair was messy, and the dark circles under his eyes were visible from 50 feet away. He walked to the podium, gripped the edges, and looked out at the crowd with absolute apathy. Good afternoon, Jace muttered into the microphone. Let's get this over with. Q3 profits are up. I plugged my phone into the AV boards. Auxiliary input. I routed the audio from my phone directly into the main PA system, overriding his podium mic. I tapped the screen, going live on my streaming platform within seconds. 50,000 people were watching. I grabbed the headset mic from the desk. Excuse me, Mr. Jensen. My voice boomed through the massive atrium, echoing off the glass walls. Jace froze. His head snapped up, his eyes scanning the crowd wildly. The shareholders began murmuring in confusion. Who is on the PA? Jace demanded, tapping his mic, but it
Was dead.
I stepped out from behind the velvet curtain, standing at the edge of the
Stage.
I said into the headset. Jace stared at me. He looked like he had seen a ghost. Shay, what the hell are you doing? Get out of here. Security. Security can wait, I announced to the entire lobby and to the thousands of people watching my stream. I have a public statement to make. I walked up the stairs to the stage. Jace backed up slightly, his eyes wide. 6 weeks ago, I said, projecting my voice, I was hired by Mary and Jensen. She offered me 10 luxury properties to seduce her son because she thought he was a hopeless, emotionally stunted workaholic who needed a weird girl to fix him. The crowd gasped. The reporters started snapping photos furiously. Jace's face turned completely white. Shay, stop. You're ruining my company. I'm fixing your life. Shut up, I told him, not breaking eye contact. I took the job because I wanted the money. I'm a greedy, shameless opportunist. But then I met you. I took a step closer to him. He didn't move away this time. I met a guy who gets flustered when I breathe too close to him. A guy who demands 3 feet of personal space, but holds my hand when he has a fever. A guy who defends me in front of snobby billionaires and tips me $5,000 online just to tell me to go to sleep. A collective arm rippled through the younger employees in the back. I didn't take the properties, Jace, I said, my voice softening. Stepping right into his personal space, I dropped the headset mic, letting it hang by my side, so only he could hear me now. I left them on the table because I realized that no amount of real estate in the world is worth losing the only guy who actually sees me. Jace was staring down at me, his chest rising and falling heavily. The anger and betrayal that had been clouding his eyes for a week were entirely gone, replaced by a desperate, fragile hope. You didn't take the deeds, he whispered.
No.
You hijacked my shareholder meeting too. Tell me this? I'm an unhinged streamer, boss. I smiled up at him, tears pricking my eyes.
Did.
You expect a handwritten letter? Jace looked at the crowd. He looked at the cameras, then he looked back at me. A slow, genuine smile broke across his face. The first real smile I had ever seen from him had completely transformed him. You're an absolute nightmare, Shay, he murmured. I know, fire me. No, Jay said. He reached out, wrapping his hand around the back of my neck, pulling me flush against his chest. I think I'll just promote you. He kissed me right there on the stage in front of the board of directors, the press, and 60,000 people spamming the PogChamp emote in my live stream chat. It was messy. It was completely unprofessional, and it was absolutely perfect. When he finally pulled away, the lobby erupted into applause. Lisa was in the front row, openly weeping and giving me a thumbs up. Jace rested his forehead against mine, ignoring the chaos around us. By the way, he whispered, a smirk playing on his lips, I'm buying you those 10 properties anyway. I laughed, wrapping my arms around his neck. See? This is why you're my favorite sugar daddy. Cross the line again, Shay, he challenged softly. Gladly, boss.